Welcome to Maheepathi Talks. Because of COVID-19, we could get some time. Colleges closed, schools closed, but learning has not been stopped. The sharing of knowledge has not been stopped. Glad that we started this Maheepathi Talks in order to deliver sessions related to English language communication skills, personality development, life skills, and psychology related topics. I'm glad that eminent personalities like today's resource person, Dr. Suvarna Ragini ma'am, have accepted to deliver the sessions related to these areas. I'm glad that ma'am, I welcome Dr. Suvarna Ragini ma'am. It's my privilege to introduce today's resource person, Suvarna Ragini ma'am. Dr. Suvarna Ragini ma'am obtained her PhD in English language teaching from the EFL University, Hyderabad. She has more than 2 decades of experience in teaching English language at graduate and postgraduate levels. She has published nearly 20 research papers in various national and international journals. She is also an academic counselor for the PG students at EFL University. Her areas of interest is in ELT with specialization in reading and writing skills. She also teaches soft skills to BTech and MTech students. She has been awarded with Best Academic Researcher Award by ESN Publications at Sri Lanka. She presented a paper titled Do Horoscopes Influence Language Learning Skills at the Second World Summit in Indianapolis. Currently, she is assistant professor at Chaitanya Bharat Institute of Technology, Hyderabad. And thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, Ragini ma'am, for having accepted to deliver the session today on the topic which is important need of the hour, that is defense mechanisms to face conflicts. Defense mechanisms to face conflicts. Now, I invite Suvarna Ragini ma'am to deliver the session.
Thank you very much, sir, for that invite. And good evening, all of you, one and all. And especially good evening to our HOD ma'am, Sandhya Reddy ma'am, and Dr. Srinivas, sir. And first of all, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to Dr. Maheepathi, sir, for initiating such a noble cause. Because, you know, knowledge will be there everywhere. But sharing of the knowledge is really a noble cause. And you have initiated this kind of effort, sir. I really appreciate those efforts. And okay, thank you very much, sir, for inviting me into this forum. Okay, to begin with today's session, am I allowed to share the screen, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You can.
Okay. I hope you are able to see my screen, sir.
Yeah,
Am I audible,
visible.
sir?
Yeah, it is visible and you are audible, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, let us come to our session of today's topic is defensive mechanisms to face conflicts. We can also call them defense mechanisms and defensive mechanisms. First of all, let me make clear the topic. It's like success story and successful stories. Because it is related to human beings, I have changed it into defensive mechanisms because we need them in our day-to-day life. So what are these defensive mechanisms? Actually, they are the strategies we imbibe through our environment or through our education to face the inconvenient situations we come across in our day-to-day life. So today I'm going to talk about this particular topic. Okay, now let us discuss 3 important terms which we are going to refer in this session. First of all, we'll talk about conflict. So what is meant by conflict? According to the dictionary, conflict means a clash or disagreement, often violent between two individuals or two groups. And it is also an incompatibility that cannot be simultaneously fulfilled and which results in a kind of stress. Stress is nothing but an inconvenient feeling because of differences of opinion between people, between family members, and between the members of the society. So that results in a conflict or a kind of friction. Another term I would like to pay attention is stress. So what does the stress mean? And according to dictionary, stress means the emotional pressure suffered by a human being resulting in a feeling of anger or displeasure. Whenever there is stress, not a physical stress, but emotional stress, that results in a kind of anger or displeasure. Physical stress, when we are enjoying, it will not give us any pain. But emotional stress, when we are disturbed, when it causes a kind of disturbance, then it results in anger or displeasure. And the synonyms of stress, we all know: resentment, frustration, intimidation, and indignation, irritation and indignation. So these are some of the synonyms. And the last term is defense mechanisms. And these are ways to behave or uh, a thing to protect or defend ourselves from anxieties. How we distance ourselves from a full awareness of unpleasant thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So, what happens? The first mechanism is we try to distance ourselves from these kind of unpleasant thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So, that is the first instinct as human beings we have it. But actually, we don't even want to run away from these kinds of ill feelings or unpleasant thoughts and all. There are many kinds of mechanisms we are going to follow, and that we are going to discuss and think about those things in our session. Now comes the stress management. How are we going to manage the stress? Stress is a feeling of emotional or physical tension. It can come from any event or thought that makes you feel frustrated, angry, or nervous, as we already talked about it. And stress is your body's reaction to a challenge or demand. Not only emotionally we react to the stress, ladies and gentlemen, our body also reacts. And there is a particular term in psychology, that is psychosomatic disorders. So our body starts reacting to continuous stress. If stress is for a little time or a shorter period, okay, we can overcome it. But if it prolongs, then our body starts reacting and we'll be surprised to the way the body reacts. So that is a challenge we have to be ready if the stress is going to be continuous. In short bursts, stress can be positive, such as when it helps you avoid danger or meet a deadline. Sometimes stress is required. That is how we teachers, we see that the students meet their deadlines and submit their assignments and all. We give a kind of threat to them. We give them deadlines so that they take it seriously. They might be put under a little stress, but at the same time, it is positive for them. They react to that kind of stress and they meet the deadlines. So to some extent, stress can be positive and we all require it. Many of us, many of the human beings have a tendency to work under stressful conditions. That is why, whenever there is a deadline to meet, most of us we wait till the last minute. We Most of us are firefighters. Firefighters are the people who wait till the last minute and then finish off the work in the last minute. Of course, if that is not expected a behavior, but sometimes we work under these stressful conditions. We try to finish off, at least we try to finish off those meet the deadlines. And these are some of the negative effects of stress. It's not that we do not know, ladies and gentlemen, but let us address what happens due to the stress. And the left side, we come across the short-term consequences of stress. First is we start feeling worried, nervous, or unable to switch off. Sometimes, we think about those ill feelings and then it is very difficult for us to switch off from those kind of feelings. So as a result, what happens? Heart beats harder and faster to pump more blood to the major muscles. Our muscles require oxygen supply continuously. From the time we are born till we die, we require oxygen, and the blood only supplies oxygen to the muscles. So what happens if we are under stress? The muscles get contracted, the blood vessels get contracted, and then our body starts aching. Breathing quickens to send more oxygen around the body, and the tummy issues due to the rush of stress hormone. There is a stress, many stress hormones are there. Adrenaline is there. which causes a very, very adverse effects on our body. That's why whenever we listen to some unpleasant news or some dangerous news, or a sudden news of somebody's demise, first of all, we have seen many people visiting the toilet. They rush to the toilet. That means the bowels, the guts get affected because of the excessive adrenaline. That is a common experience for every one of us. Our bowels get affected, upset. Then skin becomes more sensitive and oily. We also notice people becoming oily, especially the stressful persons. Their skin is always shiny. It starts secreting lots and lots of oil. That is one symptom, the psychosomatic symptom we can easily notice. Then problems between the sheets is nothing but the contraction of the thigh muscles and a pain in the abdomen. There is a sudden contraction in the abdomen whenever we listen to a stressful news or a kind of disturbing news. Then the muscles tense up as if they are preparing to make a run for it. We feel tightness in the muscles and unexplained body aches will start. So these are some of the effects of the short-term stress. Now, what happens if it is a long-term stress? Tension, headaches, and migraines. Many people suffer from migraines, unexplained migraines. The doctors are not able to find out a reason why a person suffers from migraine, but all of a sudden, they start complaining that one side of the head is terribly paining and all. That is the migraine. So that is also related to stress. Then the mental health problems, we all know that we start behaving in a different manner. We lose our cool, we don't be normal, and there is a very obvious kind of behavior where people come to know that we are disturbed. Then serious heart problems. If it is continuous, if the stress is for a shorter period, fine, our muscles can take it, and then our body can recoup it and it can regain health. But if it is continuous, then the first organ to be affected is heart problems. That is why, most of the middle-aged people after 40s and 50s, people start complaining the blood pressure and all. That is the main reason. Blood pressure is nothing but when there is continuous stress. Then trouble breathing, hyperventilation, and panic attacks. We start sweating, and then there is a panic attack. We start behaving in an abnormal manner and all. The skin and hair condition, like acne and hair loss. That is again a manifestation of long-term stress. Our skin becomes dry. Many a time it becomes dry or oily. And then hair is the first, say, organ or a part of the body which gets affected. People start losing their hair. Nowadays, we find the youngsters are losing their hair. Many of the youngsters have this problem of losing hair or becoming bald. Once upon a time, balding was a kind of hereditary problem. If father has it, the son used to get, or it is inherited by male persons. But now it has become a very, very common problem, and it is a result of stress. Then increased risk of type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, we all know that it is the consequence of hereditary. It runs in the family, they say. But strangely, type 2 diabetes affects the body due to the continuous stress. And the data says that Hyderabad is the second place for type 2 diabetes. People are affected with type 2 diabetes only because of the stress. Then the fertility problems. Nowadays, we can see that the fertility clinics are mushrooming like anything. Overnight, an ordinary clinic is turned or changed into a fertility clinic because the demand is like that. Many couples suffer from these fertility problems and they have to visit the doctors for curing this problem or overcoming this problem. So these are some of the consequences, psychosomatic consequences due to the prolonged stress, ladies and gentlemen. And one more thing, very strangely, very surprisingly, cancer, nowadays cancer is diagnosed as a result of continuous stress. It is proven, and the treatment to cancer is asking the patients to watch comedy shows. They're asking them to laugh a lot so that the happy hormones are released in the body, and then that is taken as a cure to the cancer students. The doctors are really shocked to see the proliferation of cancer patients nowadays. In olden days, did we come across this cancer? Never we heard. When we were young, cancer was a very rare term. Only in the movies we used to watch the hero, if he is affected with the cancer, he used to wear a shawl and then, take blood vomiting and all. That was the knowledge of cancer we had. And Nageshwar Rao and in Hindi, Rajesh Khanna. These were only two actors who were known for this cancer. We had that knowledge. But nowadays, I don't know whether it is true or not. Every family has got a member who is affected with the cancer. We can see the adverse consequences of this stress. So that is this is background knowledge to the stress, so that we can address the issue for today's session. Now, this is a small model I brought, ladies and gentlemen, for conflict. First of all, let us see what causes conflict. So, first of all, we will have a motive or a desire. And when the motive or a desire is fulfilled, then we reach our goal, and then there is a sense of achievement. It can be anything, a simple goal, that watching a movie or going out for a dinner or preparing a nice dish, eating it. It can be any small desire. If it is fulfilled, then we feel there is a sense of achievement. So then there is no problem. But when there is a desire and a goal, and there is a barrier between a desire and goal, then it results in stress and frustration. That goal may be a very simple goal. Maybe we want to watch a movie on the very first day, and we have booked our tickets, but all of a sudden somebody comes to our place and then we have to cancel watching that movie or anything. Then there is a kind of inconvenience in us. Oh, I missed it, I should have watched it. So any goal is not fulfilled because of any barrier, then the stress is released. I mean, the stress is caused, and then stress or the frustration is caused. So then how are we going to face this stress? Let me explain this stress and the goal. And there are basic ways of fixing stress. It's not that whenever we face a kind of stressful situation or a frustration, we have to rush to soft skills class or an expert or anything. Believe me, ladies and gentlemen, we are all blessed with wonderful mechanisms by the nature. Nature itself has provided us with these kind of mechanisms. We need not attend any class, or we need not go to an expert to get an advice or anything. To the most extent, we ourselves can overcome the stress or the conflicts. So there are these four basic ways how we are going to face or overcome the stress. The first one is fixation, second one is withdrawal, third is aggression, and then compromise. Let me explain these things with a simple example. Suppose we are very thirsty and we want to drink water, and the water is in the next room and the room door is locked. So that is the barrier to fulfill our goal. So what do we do? If we have the ability of fixing the problem, we'll find out who has locked the door, and let me get the key and let me open the key, and then open the door and then drink water. Then that is how I try to fix any problem. Let it be any problem. We try to find out the solution on our own, and then overcome that problem. Then the second type of people, they withdraw. uh, that means they say, okay, let me not drink water now. Let me drink water after some time. Let the people, the concerned people may come, open the door, and then let me wait for it. So for that moment, for that instant, we withdraw from the uh, goal, or withdraw from the desire. Then the people who have this mechanism of aggression, do you know, ladies and gentlemen, what do they do? What is this? Who has locked this door? Let me break open the lock and let me go and fulfill. Let me quench my thirst. So they take a hammer or anything, a hard instrument, and then break open the lock and then go and drink water. Come what may, let me see afterward. First of all, let me fulfill my desire. These are the people who have the mechanism of aggression. Then the last of people, they compromise. Okay, if not water, let me drink some cold drink, or let me have some cold milk or any other drink as of it. So that is how they just overcome the stress. So these are the four basic mechanisms, ladies and gentlemen, nature has given us. Not, I have given a very simple example, but right from the time we get up from the bed till we go to the bed, we face so many problems. Maybe they are minor or maybe they are major, but this is how we are going to fix or withdraw or aggressive or compromise. Maybe friends, when they are when there is a breakup in the friendship, or when they are breakup in a relationship also, these are the four methods people are going to apply, and then that is how we are going to overcome the problems. So based upon these four important mechanisms, there are n number of mechanisms available for us, and we all know them. It's not that this is the first time we are listening to them, but in this session we are going to address some of them, and then we are going to label them, what kind of mechanism I have, and what is the label given by the experts to the mechanism which I have, or any of us have them. So basically, two type of mechanisms: reactive mechanisms and proactive mechanisms. Reactive mechanisms are the mechanisms after we face the problem, how are we going to overcome it? Do we sit and brood over it, or do we sit and try to forget it? All those come under reactive mechanisms. And the proactive mechanisms are ability to foresee the problem. Okay, tomorrow I may face this kind of problem. So I have to have some strategies to overcome these problems. So these are proactive mechanisms. So today I'm going to talk only about the reactive mechanisms, but because the time may not be sufficient. So these are some of the mechanisms I'm going to address. I'll take you through these very quickly without prolonging them. So there's some of them are repression, regression, projection, avoidance, diffusion, confrontation, displacement, assertiveness, identification, atonement, emotional insulation, intellectualization, fantasy, compensation, reaction formation, and reversing motive. So these are all not new mechanisms, ladies and gentlemen. We all know them. Let us address them with some examples, day-to-day examples. Now, coming to the first one, repression. So, what happens in this repression? So, the negative thoughts are forced into subconscious mind. Usually, children, young children do this out of the helicopter parenting. There is a parenting called helicopter parenting, where parents restrict them for everything. Don't do that, don't do this, and no, you are not supposed to do this. A kind of nagging goes on there. So what happens, automatically we try to push these thoughts into subconscious mind. Not only young children, but even we do, even in our day-to-day life, we forcibly we try to push them into subconscious mind. So what happens as a result when we push them into subconscious mind? They surface as nightmares and some kind of somatic behaviors, like nail biting, and thumb suckling, and then bed wetting. All these kinds of behaviors are manifested as somatic behaviors as a result of depression. Right? So we have to see that children have to get some kind of freedom, so that they can they need not push their negative thoughts into subconscious mind. And what we are today, our personality also is a result of this kind of repression. Suppose we had any kind of repression kind of mechanism in the childhood, it is there with us. Maybe we think we are grown up, and we know how to conduct ourselves, but sometimes unknowingly the thoughts come up, they surface in our dreams as nightmares, and all of a sudden we we start reminding something else. We get a doubt. How did I get this thought? I don't even know this could happen to me. So all of a sudden we get a nightmare, or sometimes, it may happen in the present situation. So when something happens in the present situation, automatically the subconscious mind starts working, and it brings back all our past into the present. So this is one of the consequences of these repression mechanisms. And at the same time, even when we grow up also, we are guided by these emotions. And as teachers, we also come across different types of students in our class, and some are submissive, some are obedient, and some are also stubborn. Stubbornness is also a result of repression. They keep on pushing the thoughts into subconscious mind, and they, without their knowledge, they become very stubborn. I'm going to talk about an example of a stubborn student in my class in the later presentation. So this is one of the mechanisms, and so it's not a good thing to push our thoughts forcibly into subconscious mind. Then the next mechanism is regression. So in regression, what happens? People go back to childlike behavior. Suppose they have to face a conflict, then they cry. Usually, the grown-up people, we expect them not to cry. Okay, that we say, why are you crying like a small child? So people start crying because of this regression. They behave like small children. They thump their legs, they beat on the tables, they push the things, they break open the things and all. So this is out of regression happen. This is also a mechanism. Our body reacts. Some of the people's body reacts, or the mind emotionally they react by following these regressive mechanisms. Then the next one is projection. So what happens in projection? It's a process of displacing one's feelings onto a different person, animal, or object. And in Telugu, there is a proverb called "Atta మీద కోపం దుత్త మీద చూపించింది." So this is exactly that mechanism, ladies and gentlemen. Example, the students blaming the question paper. They are not prepared well for the examination. The moment they receive the question paper, they look at they glare at the question. Who has prepared this question paper? What type of questions are these? So they start blaming the question paper. And here, no one here one in the cartoon, no one wants me in their team. Actually, in reality, he is not confident about his abilities. He has an inferiority complex. It is his disability, but he blames the team. This team is not suitable for me. They don't want me. And blaming the objects. How do we think we blame the objects? Suppose a student or a youngster is driving a motorbike on the road. So he didn't notice the speed breaker and he trips over it. And then he glares at the speed breaker. Who has built this speed breaker on the middle of the road? He starts blaming the speed breaker or the people who constructed it. So that is blaming it. Even when we write, when we are in an urgency to write something and we get a pen, and the refill has run out. Then some people fling that pen down to the floor and say, "What is this pen?" Actually, it is our mistake that we did not keep the things ready. So when the things are not ready, then we start. It is actually our mistake. We have not taken care of things, and many a time we start projecting our anger or displeasure onto other persons or animals or objects. Sometimes, the parents even they beat people or the small children in their family. The next mechanism is avoidance. Avoidance is nothing but running away from the conflict. The process of staying away from something or someone. An example is not answering the phone is an example of the avoidance of someone. We are facing a conflict from someone. So when the phone rings, we don't want to lift the phone. This is nothing but an avoidance. And the manifestations of this kind of mechanism or this kind of reaction is tightness in the chest. Continuously, we are bogged or we are bothered about this kind of feeling. Sometimes it so happens that we have to avoid the people who are constantly with us. Maybe we are inconvenient with the behavior of those people or anything, but if it is constant, if it is continuous, then it results in psychosomatic disorders. It manifests in tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, increased heart rate, sweaty palms, and so on and so forth. There is a particular disorder called avoidant personality disorder, or feel highly uncomfortable in social settings for fear of being judged or disliked. So many of us, we don't like to be judged or somebody may comment on us. This we also find in our students. Whenever we give a kind of assignment, public speaking assignment, even the very good students who are good at the other skills, they try to avoid this public speaking because they don't want to be in the public glare or in the limelight. And these are the famous personalities who suffered from this avoidant personality disorder. She is Kim Basinger, a famous Hollywood actor. And when she received the Oscar award, she was not able to talk on the stage because she had this kind of problem. Though she has prepared the speech many days prior, she was not able to talk, it seems. Then Michael Jackson also suffered from this APD. That is why he built a separate parade or a separate meeting room where he used to enjoy being alone and performing. That is how he used to derive pleasure. So that is kind of avoidance. Even we try to avoid the conflicts. Sometimes we remain silent and sometimes we try to explain. But it is a kind of mechanisms, we all follow it, ladies and gentlemen. Then the next one is diffusion. What happens in diffusion kind of mechanisms? This refers to reducing the intensity of neutralizing the effect of conflict. That means a kind of avoiding the risk taking. Suppose we are holding a very high position and there is a kind of conflict going on, a lot of difference of opinion are there, and it becomes very difficult for us to go ahead. So that time, we start involving ourselves in lesser conflicts or a kind of lesser difficult task involving in arts and crafts, playing crossword puzzles. That's why we see many people getting affected to playing crossword puzzles. This is one way of overcoming the um, conflict. Watching social media sites, that is how we get, okay, if it is for a shorter time, fine, diffusion is okay, but it should not become an addiction. Sometimes it becomes an addiction. And indulging in excessive eating, nowadays in the lockdown period, we may be working harder than the normal period. So whenever there is food available, we start gobbling. So that is also again a kind of diffusion. It also results in diffusion of responsibility. This is again an interesting kind of mechanism, ladies and gentlemen. This happens in a group, diffusion of responsibility. When we are working in a group, we try to reduce the intensity of the work. For example, a task is given, or uh, or somebody asks us to volunteer to take up some job. So we think, okay, there are so many people in the group, let them take. So this is a diffusion of responsibility. So what happens as a result? Even the most supportive leader also has to turn into a dictator leader. Then the leader will start dictating the terms. Come on, you do this, you do this, you do this, because of this diffusion of responsibility. This happens in a group when we are working in a group. Then the confrontation. Confrontation is a do or die situation. Come what may, we have to face it. We cannot avoid it. We cannot repress it. We cannot regress it. We cannot do anything. We have to face it. The act of directly facing or being encouraged or required to face a difficult situation or a conflict. So this is a conflict. We face it. We face the people, and then we enter into an argument or anything. So this is the negative effect of conflict, confrontation. So what happens in a positive effect? There is a positive effect also. Like all of us, some 6 months back, we never wondered or we never even thought that we would be in such a situation of lockdown. And as teachers, personally, I never knew that I would be taking a class on online. I was totally, on the very first day, I was totally confused, baffled, puzzled. Because when I asked my students to respond, I asked a question on the very first day. I remember on the screen, so many scribblings were there on the screen. That was a shock for me. But so when the entire world is eating, Netflixing, sleeping, reading, and cooking, what did we teachers do? We were on the in front of the camera asking, "Am I visible? Am I audible? Can you hear me? Is my screen showing up? Show thumbs up," and all. So being a teacher is all about being a superhero. This is the positive confrontation. We did not run away from the battlefield. We faced it, and now we are on the way to master it also. Most of us, we are well versed. Now we are getting used to this technology. Once it was a conflict for us, once it was a stressful condition. This is how we are overcoming this. So this is the positive confrontation. And this is the example I wanted to share you with you all, ladies and gentlemen. This student is Siddhant Jain, passed out from CBIT, some 2018, I believe. And he was the troubleshooter in the class. He never used to do the assignments. He never used to write the records. And he was such a trouble and challenge for the teachers. He's a triple E student. And he had so many backlogs. He failed in many subjects, and surprisingly, look at the way he confronted life. Now yesterday he appeared on the magazine cover. He invented drones, and these drones are being used in Warangal state, where they are spraying the chemical spray to eliminate corona and all. And his company's name is Binford Technology. He's the CEO. This is really a surprise how he has confronted the life. So first he was very, very troubling student, a challenging student, very challenging students. So this is how all of a sudden the motivation clicks. We never even know when our motivation clicks and how we confront our life in a positive manner. So in the beginning, I was telling that even the stress is positive sometimes. So this is how we face the life. Now, next comes the displacement. What happens in displacement cannot express their feelings directly to the persons causing conflict. Satisfied, how do they satisfy their impulse? With a substitute. They want a substitute. Suppose here in the cartoon, the boss is shouting at him, and then he is showing it on his family members. And here, this man is redirecting his thoughts to his spouse, and then that is how he is trying to overcome the conflict. Why? Because here he cannot tell or express his conflict to the higher ups. So when we are not able to express our conflict to the higher ups, we try to channelize it. We try to redirect that kind of conflict to some other persons who are ready to absorb. Sometimes, we need shock absorbers in our life, and who else better than our spouses can be the shock absorbers when we are in conflict? Especially nowadays, most of us, though we are working more than the regular time, the day-to-day mode, face-to-face mode, but our services are not. Sometimes we have a feeling that our services are not recognized or acknowledged. So that is again another cause of conflict. So this is the displacement. When we try to displace that, we need a shock absorber in our life. So blessed are we when we have a shock absorber in our life to take our conflict and to accept our conflicts and to accept our displeasures, and try who are ready to lend a shoulder so that we can displace our conflict. Then comes assertiveness. We are all well versed with this assertiveness. It is nothing but the quality of being self-assured and confident without being aggressive. And assertiveness can help you express yourself effectively and stand up for your point of view while also respecting the rights and beliefs of others. Being assertive can also help boost your self-esteem and earn others' respect. So this is one of the best qualities or the defensive mechanisms we can follow. And these are the famous personalities who were assertive: Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela. They were assertive for years together. It is very difficult for us to be assertive for just a period of 1 hour or 2 hours. But here we have examples where they were assertive for years and years. Nelson Mandela imprisoned for 27 years. He had a cause, and then Mahatma Gandhi also fought for the freedom for years and years, and his weapon was only non-violence. Then identification. This is again an interesting defensive mechanisms. Like as the picture shows here, we empathize or we start identifying ourselves, which is shown on the screen, and then we express our emotions. Even we have such persons even in our families also. They watch the television and they completely identify themselves. They get engrossed in the characters and they start expressing the same feelings when they are watching the television or the movie. And sometimes it is also a hero worship. When a not so good looking boy, he may like the good looking person on the screen and he may start enjoying it. This is again another kind of defensive mechanism. We feel happy, and then there is a kind of secretion of happy hormones when we start identifying. This is one way of fulfilling our emotions, which are not that possible in our day-to-day life. So here we see this person is doing a very dangerous feat, jumping into a waterfall to get that bottle of cold drink, which is uh, it's very difficult to believe it can be possible. And it sounds absurd also. But there are cases where children follow Shaktiman and they try to jump down from the buildings and all. This is nothing but identification. The impossible things in the real life are enjoyed on the screen. And as a result, we have the very dangerous video games where people empathize to a very adverse extent, and the problems are created because of this identification. Okay, to some extent, we can enjoy identifying ourselves with the uh, people on the screen or on the media. Then the atonement. This atonement, it entails um, removing oneself from events, stimuli, interactions under the fear of being reminded of painful thoughts and feelings. And it also it's like making amends to compensate for damaged situations. Sometimes in unknowingly, people might have committed some crimes or sins and mistakes. So what do they indulge in? They indulge in charity, they indulge in visiting the pilgrimages and praying to the god and all. So this is again another kind of defensive mechanism. Then emotional insulation. In emotional insulation, what happens, they never show up the feelings on their face. It's very, very difficult to read their mind by looking at their countenance. The face is so clean, we can't even understand whether that person is happy or whether the person is angry or upset or anything. They remain the same throughout their life. They wear that kind of expression on the face, just because not to show the world that they have some conflict or they have some kind of problem. We come across such persons in our day-to-day life. This is called as emotional insulation. Sometimes, okay, when we are in the society, we can insulate our feelings, but as per the psychologists and the psychiatrists, it is not that good to wear an emotional insulation or not to show up. We need to share our negative feelings to somebody in whom we can confide in. That is the best method. To some extent, this is accepted, it seems, ladies and gentlemen, but otherwise, it's not that suggested. Then the intellectualization. In intellectualization, what happens? The reasoning and thinking are used to block confrontation and its associated emotional stress. Sometimes I was telling you that confrontation is required, but sometimes the confrontation is also has negative effects, where we have to grow beyond the conflict. For example, there is a death in the family, our dear ones have passed away, so it's very, very difficult for us to overcome. So what happens? The elders, what do? okay, it's okay. Now the time has come. They have been bedridden for so long. So it's a kind of relief for them. So it's okay, fine. Come on, let us all reconcile. So this is how they reason out and they think and they start, I mean, they give us a kind of advices to, they use their intellectualization, they use their expertise to overcome that kind of distress and that kind of painful situations in our life. That is how they use their intellect and experience. And it uses abstract thinking to detach oneself from feelings, while rationalization uses excuses and alternative reasons to cover up failures. There are two types of intellectualizations, ladies and gentlemen. In rationalization, what happens, we think we think of our experiences. If you all remember that fox and the grape story, when the fox is not able to reach the grapes, what does it say? It says, these grapes are sour. They are not fit for me. So that is how it justifies, it rationalizes the failures. So that is rationalization. Intellectualization is to overcome the severe, painful emotional stress. So that is a slight difference between intellectualization and rationalization. So this is how William Shakespeare used his intellectual when he wrote a poem. We all are familiar with this poem. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. This one particular line gives us the gist and the essence of entire human life. Maybe he has written it some hundreds of years ago, but even now it is applicable. It is universal, this kind of intellectualization. And even John Keats has written about something about beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all he knew, know on earth, and all he need to know. This is a sentence which really puzzles the critics even till today, it seems, ladies and gentlemen. That is the intellectualization John Keats has given us. I'm just rushing through, ladies and gentlemen, because we are running short of time. Only 1 hour is given to me. Now, coming to fantasy. Fantasy, again, is an interesting and my favorite mechanisms. People do things that they cannot do in real life. We imagine and daydreaming, the reveries. The daydreaming is a kind of mechanisms we all like it. And sometimes it is okay to to go into fantasy, sorry, not fantasizing, but go into fantasy. Imagine the things which we are not able to do in real things. And that is why the stories, the literature written based upon the fantasy have become so popular worldwide. Why do we think that these kind of stories, we know they are not possible in the real life? Even then, why there are millions and millions of people who enjoy reading these fantasy stories? Why? Because that gives a kind of release, that gives a kind of relaxation to our minds. We enjoy looking or feeling the things which are not possible in the real life. Compensation. This is again a very interesting kind of mechanism, a strategy whereby one covers up his or her weaknesses, frustrations, desires, or feelings of inadequacy or incompetency through gratification or excellence in other area. Sometimes, some people have got some kind of incompetencies. If we look at the examples, George Bernard Shaw and Hrithik Roshan, they used to stammer. They cannot speak properly. But when they grow up, how they compensated for that? Bernard Shaw became the world famous orator, and Hrithik Roshan became a popular actor. And J.K. Rowling, in the beginning, her stories were not accepted by any publisher, but finally she saw to it that the works are accepted. Nothing but it is only a compensation for their failures. There is again another instance, the compensation, ladies and gentlemen. I think most of you know she's Arunima Singh. She belongs to UP and she was traveling. She's an athlete. She was traveling by a train to some place, it's Padmavati Express, it seems, to get her certificate or anything. And she was attacked by hooligans. and they were trying to snatch away the chain. And when she protested, she was thrown out of the moving train, the speeding train, and she fell onto the tracks. And then in the night it happened, and till day she was lying on the tracks because another train, the opposite train which was coming from the other side, ran over her leg and she broke her leg. She could not get up from her place, and only early in the morning the villagers who came there found her, took her to the hospital, and then the leg had to be amputated. And that was not the stop for her. Look at the way how she compensated for her loss. She conquered Mount Everest. uh, It took 2 years for her to recover from that injury. After 2 years, she started walking, and then she started climbing, and she conquered Mount Everest. And there also she didn't stop. Now her ambition is she wanted to conquer all the highest peaks in the world, and she is already into the job. So that is how people compensate for their incompetencies. Then the reaction formation. What happens in the reaction formation? We behave exactly the opposite. Example, a person who is angry with a colleague actually ends up being particularly courteous and friendly towards them. And that means we start behaving in a opposite manner. Maybe many reasons are there why we can't show, why we cannot be transparent. Sometimes, situations don't allow to be transparent, so we have to form the reaction. Someone frightens you, so you act super nice. Someone frightens you, so you snub them. And the sex offender becomes the great protector of the society. And we have this example of a great saint. He has already established a separate country for him in the name of bringing reforms in the society and all. So that is a false persona. And here we come across another kind of reaction formation, acting like you hate someone, you really have a crush on them. Like, for example, if you take a parent, mother and the son relation, or a mother and the daughter relation, actually the mother loves the children very much, but she doesn't express it in a way of being nice to them, because out of a lot of concern, she starts scolding them. And the child feels, why is my mother always angry with me? But actually, it's a result of reaction formation. It's showing the opposite way. It is really surprising, ladies and gentlemen, but we behave in such a way. Out of concern, the concern becomes such a intensified emotion, we become the opposites. Sometimes this is the reason children fail to understand their parents. When they grow up or when they become parents, maybe they understand, but when they're teens, in their adolescence, it's very, very difficult for them, because that is a very sensitive stage where parents become so concerned, and that is how the reaction formation um, comes into existence. Another consequence of this reaction formation is they start behaving aggressively also. Some people inflict pain onto them. They slit open their veins with a sharp instrument, blackmailing their parents, because if the parents don't buy what they ask for us, this is how they start behaving. Completely opposite. They The parents get surprised. How can my child be so aggressive? They shout at the parents, they behave in a strange manner, they go to severe extents. And sometimes, even the most composed appearing person may commit suicide. We really get so surprised. How can this person commit suicide? But that happens because of reaction formation. Reversing motive. This is the last mechanism, ladies and gentlemen. I think we have come to the end of it. Wanting for a replacement of the source of conflict. So instead of thinking about the conflict, or instead of facing the conflict directly, or confronting or avoiding, or whatever mechanisms we have discussed till now, this is a strange kind of mechanism. They want to change the source of conflict. Example, suppose a husband is constantly nagged by the wife, or a wife is constantly nagged, or the conflict becomes unbearable. So what does the husband think? He wants to change the wife, or the vice versa. Nothing but in one word, it is indulging in extramarital affairs. That is how it happens. So reversing the motive is again another. We also come across students, when small child, if she is so scared of the child is so scared of the teacher, the child goes to the temple or goes to the god, and in front of the god the child prays, oh god, let my teacher die, or let my teacher go and some other new teacher come to my school. This is reversing motive. So they want to change the motives completely, because the source is unbearable. So if at all it is possible, let me change the source of the conflict. And indirectly facing the conflict in a diplomatic attack or a diplomatic way also it can happen, like our PM. Now recently, of late, we are facing a problem with our neighboring country, and we are under threat. So he started strengthening our defense forces by buying the new uh, able kind of equipment and the Rafale planes and all. That is an added kind of advantage for our thing, or it's an asset for the army or the defense forces. And another strategy is he started banning their products into our country. That is how he started hitting their economy. So this is again another way of reversing motive. And these are the proactive strategies out of paucity of time. I'm not discussing, ladies and gentlemen. Please excuse me for that. And the 3 golden tips. You are the greatest motivator in your life. We all know that nobody is going to come to us and raise our motivation levels or influence us. Ultimately, we are the motivators in our own life, and it is ultimately you who will decide what is best for you, and you discover your ambition and figure out the right path to achieve the same. This is how we are going to face our life. Okay, we have discussed so many mechanisms, we have addressed so many mechanisms, but ultimately it is we are going to decide what is suitable for us and what is possible for us, because ultimately we are going to motivate our own self. Okay, we fortunate are we when there are motivators in our life, but at the same time, we have to be independent in motivating our own self. Thank you for your patience listening, ladies and gentlemen. Any queries, if Srinivas sir accept or agrees, any queries, please.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. It was a wonderful session. No, you gave many strategies. Now, there's a lot of reflection happening inside that which strategy and how to follow it. It's open for Q&A. If anybody would like to ask any queries, if you want to add value, want to share that what you have learned, you're welcome. No? So you can unmute yourself and you can speak. It's open for you all.
Okay.
Hi all, this is Pranav, and very good evening, madam. Hope you recognize me.
Pranav.
Yeah, very happy to hear your voice. It's like throughout the session, I felt like I was back in the school, and it's been since school I haven't heard you, so it took me all the way back into the school.
Nice of you, Pranav, that you have attended my session. You have changed a lot. Anyway,
Yeah,
change is inevitable.
yeah,
Good, Pranav. Good
and
to
Good
see
evening,
you.
ma'am.
Yeah.
likewise. Apologize my voice. It's like pretty early in the morning, so yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Pranav.
you, Pranav. Thank you. Thank you for attending and also remembering ma'am and reminding ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank
What
you, ma'am.
time is it, Pranav? What time is it now there?
It's 6 a.m. now.
Okay, fine.
Thank you,
Hello,
Pranav.
ma'am.
Others, I was a student of Suvarna madam in the school, and also I'm alumnus of CBIT as well.
Oh,
Great,
you are an
great.
alumni of CBIT. I didn't know that,
Yes,
Pranav. Okay, you might have told me, but I might have forgotten.
yeah, one among your zillion students. Yeah,
Good.
That's great. No, that's a power of a teacher.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And Pranav, Sandhya ma'am also is there in the session, if you remember.
Okay.
Yeah. Which batch were you?
2005 passed out.
Ma'am, were you there? I don't know.
I must have just joined, ma'am, because I joined in 2004. So maybe Pranav may not know me. So
Yes, ma'am. He might be in first year, I think. First
yeah,
year, second year.
yes, yeah, he must have been completing then.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pranav. Thank you. All the best for your future endeavors.
Yep. Thank you.
All your teachers are here. Sanya ma'am is there. Suvarna Ragini ma'am is there.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, next we would
Nice
like to.
hearing you, ma'am.
Subhadra ma'am.
Hi. So,
Thank you, ma'am.
as we are discussing,
Okay.
nice presentation.
Subhadra ma'am,
That's a
only
wonderful
compliments.
presentation, Ragini ma'am.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
it very informative also. I mean, we all talk about stress and conflict management and all that, but I never knew that there were so many, points for consideration there, and how maybe different people deal with conflict in different ways. So, very very informative also, ma'am. Very informative and very reflective also, because it made us think. In fact, I was also thinking, I mean, what would I do in such a situation? And or like Srinivas sir was saying, I think it sort of made us reflect also, as parents, and as teachers and as individuals, as to how we deal with stress and conflict in our life, ma'am. Because stress, of course, is universal and it is inevitable. I think it's there for everybody, and all of us have different mechanisms of dealing with conflict and stress. So it was a wonderful presentation, ma'am. Very informative. And I also wanted to ask you, ma'am, how do you maybe deal with different kinds of conflict or stress in your life? What is your mechanism which works for you, ma'am?
Yeah, ma'am, many a time, I try to fix the problem. What are the first one, fix. I never go for aggressive or compromise. The first one, the fixation, that is my strategy. I try to find out what are all the possible solutions for that. And yeah, maximum extent, I do try to fix the problem, and sometimes I withdraw.
I see, nice, ma'am. And I suppose even you being spiritually inclined and you do meditation and all that, I think that also helps you to a large extent to cope,
Yes, ma'am.
with conflict in your life.
Yeah, that comes in the proactive mechanisms, ma'am. Again, it's a large area where even I feel excited to talk about
We'll
and
have one
share.
more session on proactive mechanisms, ma'am.
Hopefully, sir, if time permits. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Now we need to
meditation.
fix
Thank you, ma'am.
now we need to fix which mechanism works for us now.
Yes, depends.
Thank you,
And
man.
no
Thank you,
greater
Sanya, ma'am.
time than now, Srinivas, with the COVID and all that. I think all of us are facing so many
Correct,
different kinds of conflicts and stress in our life. I think this is a testing period for all of us.
correct.
So
Yes,
it was a very
ma'am.
relevant topic also that Madam spoke upon. Thank
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
for
Sanya, ma'am. Thank
that
you.
wonderful feedback.
Hello.
Gurulata, ma'am, please.
Yeah, am I audible, sir?
You are audible, ma'am.
Yeah. After a long time, I'm meeting you, Akka. Hello.
Yes,
You're audible.
Madhuri.
Please go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, it was a really wonderful session. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and different mechanisms you have addressed were very great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Gurulata,
Madhuri.
ma'am, is also a corporate trainer, ma'am. She works with task. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you,
We'll
sir.
take the last query. Anyone else? We are not getting any queries. We are getting only compliments. Right? Last one. We'll speak to last one. Ma'am.
That's all, I think, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Suvarna Ragini, ma'am. It was a wonderful session. As you rightly said that, again, I reiterating that. Now, when you're talking about all the mechanisms, we are just thinking which mechanism works and how we need to work on that. It's as Sanya ma'am rightly said, it's the right time to think about all this because of COVID-19. It gave us time to reflect and same to new challenges also, especially for the teachers, because online classes and other areas where we are not used to, but we made it possible. This us how to deal with the conflicts and how we can resolve them. And we got some people who are there on YouTube also. They're given a lot of compliments. Ma'am, I'd like to read out before I propose vote of thanks. Pranav says, proud to say that I was a student for almost 6 years. Very happy to hear your voice. Been almost 20 plus years. So thank you, Pranav, for attending and reminding and sharing your opinion. Merci Shiva, happy to hear you, ma'am. Padmavati, happy to hear you. Suvarna, after a long time. Sandeep Kumar, happy to hear you, ma'am. It's an honor to be your student. Uh, Sajan, happy to hear you voice, ma'am. After ages, proud to be your student. So, got many students, madam. Thank you so much for all the people who have attended from various places. And I thank special thanks to Suvarna Ragini ma'am for making time, making us understand how to deal with defense mechanisms during this COVID-19. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward for many sessions. And I thank all the participants, Dr. Aparna Reddy ma'am, Swami sir, Sandhya Reddy ma'am, Meenakshi ma'am, Subha ma'am, Pranav, Shagupta ma'am, Shagupta sir, sorry, Gausha Sultana ma'am, Satya sir, Chandrasekhar, and Sirisha ma'am. Thank you very much. And I invite all the faculty who are attending the sessions. If you would like to share your knowledge, you are welcome on this Maheepathi Talks channel anytime. Thank you, one and all. Special thanks to today's resource person, Dr. Suvarna Ragini. Have a great time.